Yo, this is Postman and welcome back to the channel. My latest EP, Overly Elaborate Track Titles, is out now on Billegal Beats and was inspired by Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Each track covers one of my favorite archetypes to pilot in Master Duel, one for each attribute. I'm doing a track walkthrough for each of these tracks. In this video, I will explain the inspiration and show some highlights of Juggerdreadnaught Rail Cannon Gustav LIebe Super Dora. Let's dive in. As I mentioned before, the EP is based on my experiences in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. And in Yu-Gi-Oh! You have a lot of cards with really absurdly long, elaborate names. And this track took it really literally. The track name is a combination of three cards: Super Dreadnaught Rail Cannon Juggernaught LIebe, Super Dreadnaught Rail Cannon Gustav Max, number 81 Super Dreadnaught Rail Cannon Super Dora. So yeah, really long absurd names. All of these cards are part of the Earth machines in Yu-Gi-Oh! As this track represents the Earth attribute. So basically this track is about trains.
I like singing. I like dancing.
I like trains.
There's not a lot of depth in the archetype. It's about spamming high-level trains and brute forcing your way to victory. The cards are based on real-world classes of trains, from high-tech to old-school, from amazing aesthetic to industrial pragmatism. As for the three referenced in the title, they are all railway cannons from World War II, made in Germany. Used by the Nazis, apparently.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
I swear to God, that's not what I had in mind when I was making this track. For this track, I wanted to simulate the driving pulse you hear and feel when you're in a train. Coincidence or not, 172 BPM, or 86 actually, seemed to match that feel for me. Since the title track references rail cannons, I also wanted to emulate the feel of the rail cannon firing and just riding on the rails minding its own business. Totally not being Nazi. A classic call and answer structure. Now, let's get to some highlights. The track is carried by an 8-bar phrase. The first bar of that phrase is more aggressive, just like the rail cannon firing. And the following 7 bars are more synthy and rolling, just like a train on the railway. Both sections use different sounds in the bass and drum department. The melodious part of the tracks only come through in the rolling part. After 2 iterations of this, the firing and rolling parts get less distinctive and blend more into each other. The bass sounds of the firing section are complex and spectral in nature. I've used spectral processing tools like GRM Frequwarp, vocoding, and Vital's innate spectral synthesis magic. GRM Frequwarp, or however you pronounce it, is from Ina GRM or Ina GRM. And the description given on their website is not really comprehensible.
Thomas had never seen such bullshit before.
But the gist is that it functions just like a wave shaper. you might recognize the graph tool, but instead of the graph functioning as the transfer function for the voltage or wave shape, the plugin transformed the spectral content of the input according to the transfer function. TLDR, it sounds weird. The sounds of the rolling section are of course more tame. In the first half of the track, it's mostly just this rolling saw bass. It has some unison, low-pass filtering, and multiband distortion boosting the mids. There is not much special going on in the drum department of this track. Analog to the basses, the drums in the firing section are more abrasive. The rolling section contains more tame sounds. Maybe a cool detail, I've used some of the included drum kits in Ableton in this project. Some are way more cool than you'd actually think. I again used the Multivoicer Trick in the track. I go more in depth about this in my previous video, but here are the basics of it. This brown track sends MIDI data to a very peculiar plugin, Neural DSP Archetype Tim Henson, a plugin tailor-made by Neural DSP for Tim Henson, the guitarist of Polyphia. I promise, I am not simping over Tim. I'm not using it as an amp here, but as a weird vocoder harmonizer. It's a weird multivoicer tool, and I basically use it as Tim would. I make a riff, I extrapolate the chords of the riff, and I use the chords in MIDI to weirdify the original riff. I use it on the intro synth loop from the Mr. Bill Spectro pack and the outro acid riff. Speaking of acid, the track also features an acid 303 style lead. But I've made this in VCV Rack 2 because I wanted to use the ripples filter from Mutable Instruments, which is very fittingly called the liquid filter in VCV Rack. It sounds acidy, but also kinda distinct and different from the classic emulations. For some godforsaken reason, I OTT'd the shit out of it and ran it through Suit, sidechained by a spectral synth layer done in Vital. I have no idea what I wanted to achieve with this, but I guess it amplifies the liquidness of the synth patch even more. Okay, thank you for watching this video. And thanks to Mr. Bill's record label Billegal Beats to release this EP. I hope you enjoyed the highlights and learned something from it, and I hope to see you next time.
Trains.